Good evening, y'all. Welcome, 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 welcome.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there, because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. We don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man. And we won't fight for bondage, as we need no king or woman. We will stand undivided, because we will raise the fallen. Now I need to hear a hallelujah as we tear down the wall there. The divide between heaven and earth, as tears turn to mirth, as we walk through the valley of death, and I draw my last breath. I know rapture I feel when I touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I've reached the hollow where my ancestors roam.
There's a toy store in St. Paul. There's a toy store in St. Paul, Minnesota, family place. And last winter, when federal immigration agents flooded their city, the people who run that store did something about it. They pulled out their 3D printers and started making whistles, little plastic whistles, thousands of them, free, so that when agents showed up in a neighborhood, somebody could blow a whistle and the people nearby would know. That's it. That's the whole crime. Whistles. So your neighbors get a heads up. A few days later, federal agents walked into that toy store and announced they were opening an investigation into the business. And it wasn't just a toy store. A hospital criticized agents for showing up at patients' bedsides without a warrant. Imagine that. Agents showing up at patients' bedsides without a warrant. And that hospital got a letter announcing its own audit. People who followed ICE vehicles to watch where they were going reported agents pulling up beside them and saying by name, "We know where you live." One woman got pulled over just for driving past an ICE truck. Turned out she was a US citizen and an off-duty police officer. This is the episode where it gets hard, because everything I just described is about as clearly protected as speech as it gets in this country. But in the same city and the same movement, there were also people doing things that were not protected at all. And what the government did, the thing I want us to look at clearly today, was put all of them, the whistle makers and the worst actors, into the same net and call it one big conspiracy. So today, we have to do the hardest thing this show does. We have to draw the line down the middle of a real, messy, painful story and hold it. Welcome back to the Hillbilly Think Tank. I am Spencer Keck. I am running for magistrate in Hardin County District 3. And again, you're listening to the Hillbilly Think Tank. No, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron, y'all. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in Kentucky ever since my kith and kin came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone. All of us searching for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And as soon as they wrote that great Constitution and gave us ethical rules of law, we knew that that's what those three principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness would stand on, along with that animating principle that we are all created equal. So, welcome back to the series now that I'm doing on the necessity of dissent. Again, I'm Spencer Keck, a retired Navy doc, combat veteran, and again, like I said, a candidate for magistrate here in Hardin County District 3. So here's where we are. Episode 2, we watched power come after dissent. Episode 3, we watched the system hold a grand jury, a federal judge, and it protected the people who came after it. But notice something about those people. They were United States senators, a retired Navy captain. They had titles. They had lawyers on speed dial. They had a federal judge willing to step in and shield them. Today, there are no senators in this story. Today, it's a toy store, a hospital, a nurse, a grandmother in a snowbank. Ordinary people with no title and no security detail. And I'll tell you up front what makes this one different from last week. The judge who tried to protect those folks got overruled. The shield that held for the senator did not hold for the street. So, stay with me.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal.
So, y'all, let me set the scene plainly and fairly. Last year, we all saw this. The administration launched something it called Operation Metro Surge. Nearly 3,000 federal immigration agents poured into Minneapolis-St. Paul area. The stated reasons included going after people in the country illegally and investigating fraud allegations tied to Minnesota's Somali community. Over the operation, the government says thousands of people were detained. And the community pushed back. The way communities do. People watched, people recorded. They organized rapid response networks to track where agents were operating. They made those whistles. They brought food to families too afraid to leave their homes. Mutual aid. Neighbors looking out for neighbors. But this operation also turned deadly. 2 United States citizens were killed by federal agents during the surge. Renee Good, a legal observer, shot and killed in January. And Alex Preddy, a Veterans Administration nurse, 2 Americans dead. Now, this is coming quite close to home for me because I use VA nurses for my health care all the time. And I used to work in the VA, take care of patients in the COVID floor. So it hits home. I know how much Alex Preddy did to take care of folks in an ICU floor. Because when I took care of folks during the COVID epidemic and also worked in the ICU floors, those people are tireless and undaunted by COVID. They still pushed forward and took care of people when it was dangerous. And remember, it was my job as a corpsman. I spent a whole career taking care of folks that put themselves into harm's way for this nation. I had to keep them alive. So killing 2 U.S. citizens here on our soil, no, this is something that it hits home.
Standing for life, liberty.
So let's bring it. Now, here's the pattern that worried civil rights lawyers, because a lot of what happened next wasn't aimed at people breaking the law. It was aimed at people watching. The toy store with the whistles investigated. The hospital that complained audited. Observers followed home. A woman shoved into a snowbank by an agent and held for hours, then released without any charge at all. And when they cuffed her, they cut the wedding ring off her finger. People pulled over for the crime of driving near an ICE vehicle. The American Civil Liberties Union sued, and a federal judge, Judge Catherine Menendez, agreed there was a real problem. She ordered the agents to stop retaliating against peaceful protesters and observers. And she wrote that the government's conduct would, quote, chill a person of ordinary firmness from engaging in further protected activity. That's the legal way of saying this would scare a normal, brave person into shutting up, which is the entire goal of intimidation by the federal government, any government. As the ACLU's lawyer put it, following, observing, or reporting on what federal agents are doing is not a crime. It's protected First Amendment activity. You are allowed to watch your government work. Full stop. But the shield didn't hold. And here's where this episode parts ways with last week's hopeful one, yesterday's hopeful one, sorry. Remember, with Senator Kelly, the judge's order held. It's still holding while the appeal plays out. Here, within about a week, a higher court, the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, froze Judge Menendez's order, said it was too broad. And I'll give you a detail that matters. One of the 11 judges on that appeals court, 10 were appointed by Republican presidents, 4 of them by President Trump. Now, I'm not telling you those judges ruled in bad faith. Appeals courts narrow lower court orders all the time, and too broad is a real legal concern. But the effect is the effect. The protection on a judge had granted to peaceful protesters, it got switched off, and the operation rolled on. So sit with the contrast. The senator with the title got a shield that held. The grandmother in the snowbank got a shield that lasted a week. Same Constitution, different muscle behind it. The prosecutions and the indictment. Then came the charges. And this is where I have to be most careful, most honest with you. Over the months of the surge, federal prosecutors brought a lot of cases against protesters, and a striking number of them fell apart. By one count, the U.S. Attorney's Office dropped roughly half of its cases, and at least one, a judge said a charging document amounted to a false affidavit. One activist charged in a similar case in another state put it in a way that stuck with me. The process is the punishment. Meaning, even if every charge eventually gets dropped, they've already made you hire lawyers, lose sleep, and think hard about whether it's ever, you're ever going to speak up again. The drop case isn't the system failing for the government. Sometimes the fear it created along the way was the whole point to begin with. And then just days ago, the big one. Federal prosecutors unsealed a 94-page indictment charging 15 people, members and associates of a group called Direct Action Minnesota, with conspiracy to impede federal officers, plus stalking, threats, assault on officers, solicitation of violence, and destruction of property. The government framed the whole thing as an antifa network. 12 people were arrested. The top conspiracy charge carries up to 6 years. The line. Okay. This is the moment this whole series has been building toward. The hardest line to draw and the most important one to draw. So let me do it carefully, and let me start by giving the other side its full due, because it has a real argument. The U.S. Attorney, Daniel Rosen, anticipated exactly the criticism I'm about to make. And he said plainly that these people were charged not for what they said, but for what they did. The conspiracy, he argued, wasn't to interfere by voice, it was to interfere by force. And he's pointing at some things that he calls real. The indictment described blockading a federal building, tailing officers across state lines, throwing blocks of ice at moving vehicles. And it quotes one man, Kyle Wagner, telling followers to arm themselves, saying, his words, "We're not talking about peaceful protests anymore." Another defendant wrote that you'll never win with nonviolence alone. All right, So we have to say this clearly as I know how, because it's a principle and not just an aside. All right. We're looking for the government to not be violent. That is what we require. The government cannot be violent against dissent. Criterion 4 that we've talked about previous episodes, dissent has to be ethical. Criterion 7, it has to persuade, never coerce, never threaten, never use force. Now, if you're throwing things at people, if you're telling a crowd to arm itself, if you are threatening federal agents, you have walked off the far edge of everything this show is defending. That's not protected speech. Violence is a crime. And everyone who does it makes the whole movement easier to crush because they hand the government its best excuse on a silver platter. I'm not here to defend it, but we are here to look at true dissent. And here is the problem. The problem is the word conspiracy, because a conspiracy charge is a net. And the question that decides whether this is justice or whether it's something uglier is a simple one. How wide did they cast the net? Did the net catch only the people throwing ice and making threats? Or did it sweep up the whistle makers, the legal observers, the people who followed a car and wrote down a plate number, folks doing the exact protected activity a federal judge said was their constitutional right? And that's how we are, what we're here to answer. And we're going to, so did the folks doing the exact protected activity a federal judge said was their constitutional right get tied to the worst actors under one little word, antifa, a label that the administration has declared a terrorist movement that prosecutors won't even define? When asked, the U.S. attorney said defining antifa was beyond the scope. Beyond the scope of what? And the critics that say this is being used as a glue to stick lawful protest to unlawful violence. If you can't define it, it doesn't exist. If you can't define it, there is no scope to go beyond. So they have not defined it. And that's the move. That's the whole thing to watch for when the government has a few genuine bad actors and uses them as a reason to criminalize a whole community's right to watch and to speak. That's not targeting violence. That's using violence as a pretext. And when half your earlier cases have already collapsed, one on what a judge called a false affidavit, you have learned some serious skepticism. You have earned some serious skepticism about how carefully that net was woven. So this is the line, and I'm going to hold both ends of it at once because honesty requires it. The violence and the threats, condemn them. They're real. They're wrong. They're not dissent. The whistles, the observing, the recording, the warning your neighbors, defend them. They're sacred. They're protected. They're the lifeblood of a free people. And the deliberate blurring of those two things into one indictment, that is the danger this whole series is about. Refuse the blur. That's the job. Now, think back to episode 1, to Hannah Arendt and the idea that the ground of real political evil isn't some cartoon villainy. It's thoughtless going along. The easiest thing in the world when the government says these people are a violent Antifa conspiracy is to nod and move on. The work, the citizens' actual job is to stop and ask which people for which acts on what evidence? To refuse to let one scary word do your thinking for you. That refusal is not disloyalty. In a country like ours, it's the most loyal thing you can do. So now let's bring it home. Back to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And in this episode of all of them, it comes home the hardest because it's about ordinary people and their local community, which is exactly what I'm running to serve. Life. 2 citizens died in this story. I told you last week that life isn't an abstraction to a corpsman, and it isn't. The very first duty of any government is right here at the top of the Declaration, before liberty, before anything, is to secure the people's life. When a government takes a life and then it turns lawyers on the people who witnessed it, something sacred has been turned upside down. Liberty, the right to stand on a public sidewalk and watch your government, to film it, to warn your neighbor. That is as American as it gets. We do not give that up because the government finds it inconvenient. But here's the part I most want District 3 to hear, because it's the hope in a dark story. And it's the entire reason I'm running. Watch who actually pushed back in Minnesota. It wasn't only federal judges, it was local government. Local prosecutors looked at these protest cases and declined to bring them. A county actually brought charges against a federal agent over one of the killings. Local police chiefs said out loud that they'd have had trust to rebuild once the agents left. When federal power overreached, the people standing closest to the community, county and city officials, were a real check on it. That's the job I'm asking you for. A county magistrate isn't going to set immigration policy, but local government decides every single day whether it will be an instrument of overreach or a check against it, whether it protects its residents' right to speak and their safety and their lives, or whether it just goes along. The pursuit of happiness, that whole beautiful idea, is a community of neighbors taking care of each other and governing themselves. The whistles, the food on the porch, that is self-government. And a county that protects that instead of prosecuting it is a county doing its most basic job. I took an oath to defend the Constitution. It didn't expire when I left the Navy, and it won't expire if you send me to the fiscal court. Support and defend, including the right of the people of this county to watch their government, question it, and never be afraid to speak. And never being afraid to speak is the highly important part of this series. You should never, ever be afraid to speak your mind in your nation and in your county. So, y'all, next time, we're going to finish where this whole series was always headed. Down from the Senate, down from the courts, down from the streets of a faraway city, all the way to one room on the second and fourth Tuesday of the month, right here in Hardin County, the fiscal court, the place where all of this stops being a podcast and starts being a ballot. Episode 5, the finale of this series. I'm Spencer Keck. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank, and this series in the Hillbilly Think Tank is the necessity of dissent. Condemn the violence, defend the witness, refuse the blur, and come to a fiscal court meeting. I'll see you there. I'll be sitting back there taking notes, listening, asking questions. And if you elect me, I'll be the one. If you ask a question, I will answer. I won't shut you down. Y'all remember everyone deployed overseas. I'm hoping that you're having a great weekend. Bless your corazón. Have a great rest of the weekend. Enjoy some of this sunshine before the rain comes on back in and tries to wash us away.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come. And when I reach that valley, I need to see you there, because we don't need a kingdom, we only need free air. We don't seek a king, we seek the brotherhood of man, and we won't fight for bondage, as we need no king or woman. We will stand undivided, because we will raise the fallen. Now I need to hear a hallelujah as we tear down the wall there. Divide between heaven and earth as tears turn to mirth, as we walk through the valley of death, and I draw my last breath. I know rapture I feel when I touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I've reached the hollow where my ancestors roam.
Did you just do? The fuck did you just do? Ah! Yes, Liz, somebody call the ambulance. Somebody call the ambulance. Somebody needs to call the ambulance. Somebody call 911. I can't believe they just did that. Holy shit. Holy shit.
Standing for life,
Just
liberty,
come on.
and the pursuit of happiness.
Oh my God, you fucking people, man. You fucking
Built
killing
upon the
us.
shoulders
Why
of the
would you do
Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we
Oh my God.
all
Oh my God.
created
I can't
equal.
believe I'm seeing this.
I need to hear
Come on, come on, come on, come here, come on. Come here.
hallelujah.
It is.
I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I mean the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home.